Commander Jake Sullivan stared at the massive structure floating in the empty space between galaxies. The thing was huge, bigger than any ship humans had ever built. It looked like a crystal mountain made of black metal that seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. His crew aboard the starship Aurora had been exploring this region for 3 months, without finding anything interesting. Now they had found something that made Jake's hands shake as he gripped the command chair. Lisa Rodriguez bent over her science station, her fingers flying across the controls. She was the best language expert in the human fleet, someone who could decode alien writing faster than anyone else. The strange symbols covering the artifact were unlike anything in human databases. They seemed to move and shift when she looked at them directly, as if the metal itself was alive and trying to communicate. "Commander, I'm getting some kind of transmission from that thing," said Tony Martinez from the navigation station. His voice was tight with worry. "It's not using any frequency we know about. The signal is going straight into our computer system somehow." Jake moved closer to Lisa's station. "What are you seeing, Doctor?" Lisa's face was pale as she studied the translated text appearing on her screen. "Sir, this is a warning beacon. It's been here for millions of years based on the energy decay patterns. The civilization that built it called themselves the Architects." She paused and looked up at Jake with frightened eyes. "Commander, they're warning us about something called the Forbidden Sector." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Jake felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. "What kind of warning?" Lisa read from her screen in a shaky voice. "Never awaken the sleepers. Never breach the Forbidden Sector. This is the first and oldest rule of the galaxy. Those who break this rule will face consequences beyond imagination." She looked up at Jake again. "There's more, sir. Much more." Tony was working frantically at his station, comparing star charts and coordinates. His face went white as paper. "Commander, we need to see this right now." He put the navigation display on the main screen. Ancient star maps appeared next to current human territory charts. "Sir, according to these coordinates, the Forbidden Sector includes everything we call the Outer Rim colonies." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the chest. The Outer Rim was home to 50 human worlds. Over 30 million people lived there. Earth had been sending colonists to that region for the past 50 years. "Are you saying we've been living in this Forbidden Sector?" "Not just living in it, sir," Tony replied. "We've been building cities, mining planets, and establishing military bases throughout the entire region. If this beacon is correct, we've violated the most important law in galactic history." Dr. Rachel Kim spoke up from the archaeology station. She was young but brilliant, someone who specialized in studying dead civilizations. "Commander, I'm finding references to this rule in the archives from every alien race we've encountered. The Zephyrians have it. The Crystalline Collective mentions it. Even the warlike Corvan Empire respects this boundary. Everyone knows about it except us." Jake paced across the bridge, his mind racing. How could humanity have missed something so important? Earth's first contact protocols were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. "How many civilizations know about this rule?" Rachel's fingers moved across her console as she searched through historical databases. "All of them, sir. Every single advanced species in the galaxy has records of the Forbidden Sector and the oldest rule. Some of the records go back hundreds of thousands of years. It seems like this knowledge gets passed down from older species to younger ones as they develop space travel. Except to us," Lisa added quietly. Jake stopped pacing and stared at the alien structure on the main screen. "Why? Why didn't anyone tell us about this when we first made contact with other species?" Tony looked confused as he checked his navigation logs. "Sir, maybe they assumed we already knew. When human ships first reached the galactic community 50 years ago, our initial meetings were in the inner systems. The aliens might have thought we understood galactic law before we started expanding outward." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Humanity had spent decades making friends with alien civilizations while unknowingly breaking the most sacred law in the galaxy. "What happens to species that break this rule?" he asked. Lisa's hands trembled as she continued translating the ancient text. "The records are unclear, Commander. The warning mentions consequences but doesn't specify what they are. However, I'm finding references to something called the Great Correction in several passages. There are also mentions of entire star systems being reset for violating the boundary." Rachel looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I've been cross-referencing archaeological data from different sectors. There are gaps in the historical record. Whole civilizations that appear in ancient texts but then suddenly vanish without explanation. The disappearances all seem to cluster around the same time periods. Jake felt sick. You think those civilizations broke the rule too? It's possible, sir. But there's something else. According to these records, no species has ever successfully challenged the sleepers, whoever or whatever they are. Every civilization that encountered them either submitted completely or disappeared from history. The bridge was quiet again as everyone absorbed this information. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. These were good people, brave explorers who had volunteered for deep space missions. They didn't deserve to be caught up in humanity's ignorant mistake. Commander, Lisa said softly, there's one more thing. The beacon isn't just a warning. It's also a monitoring station. It's been recording everything that passes through this region. Every human ship, every colony transport, every military patrol. Someone or something knows exactly what we've been doing. Tony checked his sensors again. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures deep in the forbidden sector. They're old, older than anything we've seen before, but they're getting stronger. It's like something big is waking up. Jake made his decision. His crew was looking to him for leadership, and 30 million human lives might depend on what he chose to do next. He could report this discovery to Earth Command immediately and cause galaxy-wide panic. He could try to hide the information and hope the problem would go away. Or he could do what humans did best when faced with an impossible situation. Lisa, I want you to copy everything from that beacon. Every warning, every historical record, every piece of data you can extract. Tony, plot a course deeper into the forbidden sector. We need to see what we're dealing with before we make any reports to Earth. Rachel looked worried. Sir, is that wise? If we go deeper into forbidden space, we might make the situation worse. Jake looked at the alien beacon one more time before turning to face his crew. We're already in the worst situation possible. Our species has unknowingly broken the oldest law in the galaxy, and something ancient and powerful is waking up because of it. We can run back to Earth with warnings and create panic, or we can find out what we're really facing. I'd rather know the truth. The Aurora turned away from the beacon and headed deeper into the space that humanity should never have entered. Behind them, the ancient warning continued to broadcast its message into the void, a message that had been ignored for 50 years. Ahead lay answers that might save humanity or damn them forever. Jake gripped his command chair and prepared to face the consequences of breaking the oldest rule in the galaxy. 3 months had passed since Commander Jake Sullivan discovered the ancient beacon, and now the galaxy was learning what happened when the oldest rule was broken. Captain Stephen Brooks stood in the command center of New Denver Station, the furthest human outpost in what they now knew was forbidden territory. Red warning lights flashed across every console as another mining operation went silent. That's the 7th team we've lost contact with this week, reported Lieutenant Patricia Wells from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. The pattern is always the same, Captain. Normal operations, then complete radio silence. When we send rescue ships, we find empty mining sites, with all the equipment still running but no people. Stephen watched the tactical display showing human colonies scattered across the outer rim. Each red dot represented a world where something impossible was happening. Ships and people were vanishing without any signs of violence or struggle. It was as if they simply stopped existing. Any word from Earth Command? Stephen asked. Admiral Clark is mobilizing the fleet, but they're still 3 weeks away, Patricia replied. We're on our own until they arrive. Carlos Webb looked up from his sensor station with confusion written across his face. Captain, I'm detecting something massive approaching the Haven colony. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything in our databases. The energy signature doesn't match any known technology. Stephen moved to the main display and studied the readings. The object approaching Haven Colony defied every law of physics humans understood. It appeared to be a geometric structure made of pure energy, constantly shifting between different mathematical shapes. The sensors couldn't determine its exact size because it seemed to exist in more dimensions than human instruments could measure. Get me a communication link with Haven Colony, Stephen ordered. Patricia's hands flew over her controls before she shook her head. Sir, I can't establish contact. Something is interfering with all transmissions in that area. It's like space itself is being twisted. On the main screen, they watched as the impossible object moved toward the human settlement. Stephen expected to see weapons fire or explosions, but nothing violent happened. Instead, the geometric shape simply passed over the colony, and all the lights went out. Every piece of human technology stopped working at the same time. What the hell was that? Carlos whispered. Before anyone could answer, Patricia's console came to life with an incoming transmission. The signal was unlike anything in human communication protocols. It bypassed their normal receivers and spoke directly through the computer speakers in a voice that sounded like music, made from mathematics. "Children of the young world," the voice said, and everyone on the bridge felt a deep sadness in the words. "You have walked where you should not walk. You have awakened those who chose to sleep. We are the sleepers, and we are disappointed." Stephen found his voice after several seconds of shock. "This is Captain Stephen Brooks of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Who are you? What do you want from us?" "We want nothing, young captain. We wanted only to remain asleep until the universe grew cold and empty. Your species has made that impossible. We must now correct what has been disturbed." The transmission continued, and Carlos frantically worked to record every word. The voice spoke with infinite weariness, as if each syllable caused great pain. "We do not hate you, children. We understand that you acted without knowledge, but ignorance does not change consequences. The boundary exists to protect all life in the galaxy, including yours." "What boundary?" Stephen demanded. "No one told us about any forbidden territory when we first contacted other alien species." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "The boundary between what is and what should not be awakened. We are beings who transcended physical existence eons ago. We chose to sleep so that younger races could grow and develop without our overwhelming presence influencing their evolution. Your intrusion into our domain forces us back into a reality we abandoned for the greater good." Patricia managed to break into the communication. "Are you going to destroy us?" "Destruction is not correction, child. We do not end life needlessly. But your presence in the forbidden region cannot continue. You must withdraw, or we will help you withdraw. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Stephen stared at the tactical display showing dozens of human worlds now under threat from beings that possessed technology beyond imagination. These sleepers didn't want to fight humanity, but they were prepared to remove every human from their territory regardless of the cost. "Captain," Carlos said quietly, "I'm detecting more of those geometric ships throughout the sector. They're moving toward every human colony simultaneously. Whatever they're planning, it's coordinated across dozens of star systems." Dr. Elena Foster, the station's quantum physicist, had been quiet during the exchange, but now she spoke up. "Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor data from Haven Colony. What we witnessed wasn't an attack. It was something far more sophisticated. Those beings didn't destroy the human technology. They simply made it impossible for our machines to function by altering the fundamental constants of physics in localized areas." Stephen turned to face her. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means they can turn off our technology without damaging it. They can make our ships unable to fly, our weapons unable to fire, and our life support systems unable to function. They're not conquering us, Captain. They're making it impossible for us to exist in their space." The implications hit Stephen like a physical blow. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their technology and adaptability. Against an enemy that could simply turn off human machines, those advantages meant nothing. "How many people are living in the colonies they're approaching?" Patricia checked her database. "Nearly 30 million across all the Outer Rim settlements, sir." Stephen made a command decision. "Send out a general evacuation order to all colonies in the sector. Emergency Protocol 7. Everyone gets on the fastest ships available and heads for inter-system space immediately." "Sir," Carlos interrupted, "I'm receiving reports from colony ships trying to evacuate. The geometric vessels aren't stopping them from leaving, but they're escorting them to the boundary of the forbidden sector. It's like they want to make sure we leave but don't want to harm us in the process." Dr. Foster looked puzzled as she studied more sensor readings. "Captain, this is unprecedented. These beings have technology that could eliminate humanity in minutes, but they're taking time to ensure safe evacuation. Why?" The answer came from another transmission, this time from a different sleeper. The voice was equally sad but carried notes of what sounded like parental concern. "We were once young like you, children of Earth. We remember the curiosity that drives exploration and the ignorance that leads to mistakes. We do not wish to punish you for following your nature, but some boundaries exist to protect everyone, including those who cross them. Stephen seized the opportunity to communicate again. Then help us understand. Why is this region forbidden? What are you protecting us from? We are protecting you from us, the voice replied with infinite sadness. Our power is absolute within this region. Our thoughts become reality. Our emotions reshape matter and energy. We chose to sleep because our mere existence prevents younger species from developing independently. You cannot coexist with gods, young captain. It stunts growth and creates dependence. Carlos was recording everything when his instruments detected something new. Captain, there's another massive energy signature approaching our position. This one is different from the others. It's not geometric. It looks almost organic. On the main screen, they watched as something that resembled a living star approached New Denver Station. The entity pulsed with internal light, and Stephen could swear he saw intelligence moving within its blazing form. When it spoke, the voice was different from the others, older and more tired. I am the first dreamer, it said. I have slept the longest among my kind. Young humans, we offer you a choice that no other species has received. Withdraw completely from our domain now. Accept limitations on your future expansion and we will return to our sleep. Your colonies will be relocated safely, and your people will be unharmed. Stephen felt the weight of 30 million lives on his shoulders. And if we refuse, then we will do what we have done before when species refuse to respect the boundary. We will reset this entire region of space to allow for new evolutionary paths. Your settlements will be removed. Your people will be relocated to suitable worlds outside our domain, and all record of your presence here will be erased. Life will continue, but not your life as you know it. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Stephen realized they were facing beings that could rewrite reality itself. Entities that had probably done this many times before with other civilizations that had made the same mistake humanity had made. How long do we have to decide? Stephen asked. Time moves differently for us than for you, the first dreamer replied. In your terms, you have 7 days to begin withdrawal. If evacuation has not started by then, we will begin the correction process. The transmission ended, leaving Stephen and his crew to contemplate humanity's first encounter with beings so advanced they might as well be gods. President Alan Stone sat in the emergency session of Earth's Global Council, his face grim as he listened to Admiral Clark's report from the diplomatic mission. The alien representatives had made their position clear. Humanity must withdraw from the forbidden sector completely or face correction like 47 other species before them. The Memory Keeper had hinted at possible alternatives, but no concrete options had been presented. Absolutely not, President Stone declared, his voice carrying the determination that had made him a leader. Humanity has never accepted ultimatums, and we won't start now. 30 million people have built lives in those colonies. They have families, businesses, and dreams there. We don't abandon our own people. Dr. Benjamin Cole, Director of Advanced Research, looked up from his tablet with excitement in his eyes. Mr. President, I've been studying the data our teams collected from the sleeper encounters. Their technology operates on principles we can understand, even if we can't match their power levels yet. What if we don't have to match them? What if we can prove we deserve to coexist with them? General Morgan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Doctor, these beings can alter the laws of physics with their thoughts. How exactly do we prove ourselves worthy to gods? By showing them something they haven't seen before, Dr. Cole replied. Every species that encountered the sleepers either submitted or was corrected. No one has ever tried to meet them as equals. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our refusal to accept that anything is impossible. President Stone leaned forward with interest. What are you proposing, Doctor? Dr. Cole activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical equations and energy patterns. Project Breakthrough, sir. Instead of trying to fight the sleepers or beg them for mercy, we attempt voluntary transcendence. We prove that humans can evolve to their level while maintaining our essential humanity. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Dr. Nicole Parker, Earth's leading quantum physicist, studied the proposed equations with growing amazement. Ben, this is incredibly dangerous. You're talking about fundamentally altering human consciousness and physiology. We don't know what the long-term effects would be. We know what the alternative is, President Stone said quietly. If we do nothing, 30 million people get relocated and have their memories altered. If we try this and fail, we might lose a few volunteers instead of entire colonies. Admiral Clark's voice came through the communication system from his flagship. Mr. President, the sleepers have agreed to observe our attempt. The memory keeper says they are curious about humanity's approach, but warns that failure could result in immediate correction. Captain Helen Morris stepped forward from her position near the wall. She commanded the experimental vessel Ascension, humanity's most advanced ship equipped with prototype technology that pushed the boundaries of known science. Sir, my crew volunteers for the mission. If anyone is going to attempt voluntary transcendence, it should be people who understand the risks. President Stone studied Captain Morris's determined expression. She was known throughout the fleet for her courage and innovative thinking. Her crew included the best pilots, engineers, and scientists humanity could field. Captain, you understand this is essentially a suicide mission. Even if the process works, you might not remain human in any meaningful sense. With respect, Mr. President, that's exactly why it has to be us. If we succeed, we prove humanity can evolve beyond our current limitations. If we fail, we'll have given our lives trying to save 30 million people. Those are acceptable odds for my crew. Dr. Parker ran final calculations on the transcendence process. The theory is sound, but we're making huge assumptions about consciousness transference and energy matter conversion. The volunteers would need to interface directly with sleeper technology while maintaining their individual personalities and human connections. Greg Thompson, the Ascension's chief pilot, spoke up with typical human optimism. Doc, we've been interfacing with alien tech for decades. How different can this be? Very different, Dr. Cole admitted. Sleeper technology doesn't just process information. It processes reality itself. When you connect with their systems, you're not just accessing a computer. You're accessing the fundamental forces that shape the universe. Janet Rivera, the ship's systems specialist, had been studying the sleeper data files. Doctor, I'm seeing patterns in their energy signatures that suggest modular consciousness transfer. If we can maintain connection to our original neural patterns while accessing their power systems, we might be able to transcend without losing our humanity. President Stone made his decision. Project Breakthrough is approved. Captain Morris, you have 72 hours to prepare. Dr. Cole, I want every theoretical physicist and consciousness researcher working on this project. If humanity is going to attempt the impossible, we do it right. The next 3 days passed in a blur of frantic preparation. The Ascension was equipped with experimental interface systems designed to allow human consciousness to merge temporarily with sleeper technology. Captain Morris and her crew underwent intensive training in consciousness transfer techniques that had never been tested on living subjects. Dr. Vincent Hayes monitored the volunteers' vital signs as they prepared for the most dangerous experiment in human history. Captain, your brain activity is showing unusual patterns. The preliminary interfaces are already affecting your neural chemistry. Captain Morris looked at herself in the mirror and noticed her eyes seemed brighter, more aware somehow. I can feel it, Doctor. It's like having access to thoughts that aren't quite my own. The knowledge is there, but it feels foreign. The day of the experiment arrived with representatives from multiple alien species observing from a safe distance. The memory keeper appeared aboard the Ascension as Captain Morris, and her crew activated the Transcendence Interface systems. This is unprecedented, the memory keeper observed, as the humans began their transformation. No species has ever attempted voluntary evolution while maintaining connection to their original consciousness patterns. Captain Morris felt her awareness expanding beyond anything she had imagined possible. She could sense the fundamental structure of reality itself, understand the mathematical principles that governed space and time. For a brief moment, she existed on the same level as the sleepers themselves. It's working, she reported, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. I can see why you chose to sleep. This level of awareness is overwhelming. I understand how easy it would be to lose touch with smaller concerns like individual lives and civilizations. But as the transcendence process continued, Dr. Hayes noticed troubling changes in the volunteers. Their human emotions were fading, replaced by the same cosmic detachment that characterized the sleepers. Greg Thompson began speaking about humanity's expansion as if he were observing insects, his personal connections to other humans diminishing rapidly. Captain Morris, President Stone called through the communication system. How do you feel about your crew back on Earth? There was a long pause before she answered, and when she did, her voice carried the infinite weariness of the sleepers. They are young and chaotic, Mr. President. Perhaps the sleepers are correct. Perhaps humanity should accept limitations and develop more slowly. The transcendence process shows us truths about existence that make our former concerns seem trivial. Dr. Hayes watched in horror as the most courageous humans he knew began to lose the very qualities that made them human. The transcendence was working perfectly, but the volunteers were becoming more like sleepers and less like the people they had been. "Stop the process," President Stone ordered. "Bring them back." But Captain Morris and her crew were already too far along the transcendence path. They had gained incredible power and understanding, but at the cost of their essential humanity. They could now see reality from the sleeper's perspective, which made them less able to understand why their former species should be special or deserving of unique treatment. The memory keeper observed the results with what might have been sadness. "Your species has proved they can transcend, but transcendence changes the transcended. These humans now see their former people as we see all young species. Interesting but ultimately limited beings who require guidance rather than equality." President Stone realized with growing despair that winning this battle meant losing humanity itself. Project Breakthrough had succeeded too well, creating humans who could match the sleeper's power but no longer possessed the stubborn defiance and emotional connections that made humanity unique. As the transcended crew of the Ascension began to suggest that perhaps Earth should accept the sleeper's wisdom and voluntarily limit human expansion, President Stone understood that his species faced an impossible choice: remain human and face correction, or transcend their limitations and lose everything that made them human in the first place. Commander Jake Sullivan stood in the observation deck of the Aurora, watching the impossible sight before him. The transcended crew of the Ascension floated in space without life support, their bodies glowing with the same energy that powered sleeper technology. They had achieved godhood but lost their humanity in the process. President Stone's desperate gambit had failed, leaving humanity no closer to a solution. "Commander," Dr. Lisa Rodriguez called from the science station, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Forbidden Sector. The sleepers are preparing for the correction process. We have less than 24 hours before they begin relocating our colonies." Jake turned away from the window and faced his crew. These were the same people who had discovered the ancient beacon months ago, starting humanity's collision course with forces beyond imagination. Now they might be the only ones who could find a way out of this disaster. "Lisa, you've been studying sleeper culture and psychology longer than anyone. Is there something we're missing? Some approach we haven't tried?" Lisa pulled up her research files, scrolling through months of data collected from encounters with the ancient beings. "Commander, every species that faced the sleepers had the same two choices: submit or transcend. But what if there's a third option? What if we're approaching this completely wrong?" Tony Martinez looked up from his navigation station with confusion. "What do you mean, Doctor?" "Think about it," Lisa continued, her excitement growing. "The sleepers chose to sleep to avoid stunting younger species growth. They established the Forbidden Sector to protect us from their overwhelming power. Every action they've taken has been designed to help younger civilizations develop naturally." Jake began to see where she was going. "You're saying they don't want to be our enemies?" "More than that, Commander. I think they're as trapped by this situation as we are. They don't want to be awakened. They don't want to relocate 30 million humans, and they certainly don't want to resume active existence. The correction process forces them back into a reality they abandoned for everyone's benefit." Patricia Wells, who had survived the first sleeper encounters at New Denver Station, joined the conversation from her position at the communications array. "If that's true, then maybe we can offer them something they want instead of trying to prove we deserve special treatment." "What could we possibly offer to beings with godlike power?" Tony asked. Jake felt a spark of inspiration as he remembered something from the first sleeper communication. They said they chose to sleep until the universe grew cold and empty. What if we offered to help them sleep again, but with a different kind of protection for their domain? Lisa's eyes widened with understanding. Partnership instead of submission. We become willing guardians of the boundary instead of violators of it. The idea was so simple and so audacious that it took everyone a moment to fully grasp its implications. Instead of trying to conquer, transcend, or beg their way out of the situation, humanity would offer to take responsibility for protecting the very boundary they had violated. "Commander," Patricia said with growing excitement, What if we propose sharing the burden of guardianship? Humans are natural explorers and defenders. We could monitor the boundary, warn other species about the danger, and prevent future violations. Jake activated the ship's communication system and sent a priority message to President Stone. Within an hour, the idea had reached the highest levels of human government and the sleeper domain simultaneously. The Memory Keeper materialized on the Aurora's bridge to hear humanity's proposal directly. "You wish to become guardians of the boundary you violated?" the Memory Keeper asked, its geometric form shifting through patterns that might have indicated surprise. "This is unprecedented. It's also practical," Jake replied. "Your people want to sleep. Our people want to live in space. We can't coexist as equals because of the power imbalance, but we can work together as partners with different responsibilities." Lisa stepped forward with her research data. "Memory Keeper, we've studied every sleeper communication from the past months. Your people are suffering by being forced awake. The correction process requires you to remain active until the relocation is complete. Our proposal would allow you to return to sleep immediately, while ensuring the boundary remains protected." The Memory Keeper's form brightened with what could have been hope. "Continue your explanation, humans." Patricia brought up tactical displays showing the human colonies in the Forbidden Sector. "We don't withdraw completely. Instead, we transform our settlements into monitoring stations and guardian outposts. Human crews would rotate through the region on limited tours of duty, maintaining early warning systems and intercepting other species before they could violate the boundary." Tony added navigation data to the proposal. "We've already mapped every approach route to the sleeper domain. Human ships could patrol these corridors and redirect explorer vessels before they trigger awakening protocols." The Memory Keeper considered the proposal for several long minutes. "Your species would accept permanent responsibility for boundary protection? This commitment would extend far beyond your current lifespans." "Humans specialize in long-term commitments we don't fully understand," Jake replied with a slight smile. "We've been doing it for thousands of years with things like democracy, education, and environmental protection. Adding boundary guardianship to that list isn't much of a stretch. There would need to be safeguards," the Memory Keeper continued. "Humans would require oversight to ensure they do not abuse their position or gradually expand their presence in our domain." Lisa had anticipated this concern. "We propose hybrid oversight. Human guardians would use sleeper-designed monitoring technology that prevents expansion beyond designated areas. The systems would be self-limiting and impossible to modify without triggering automatic alerts." Patricia had been working with the station's engineers on practical implementation details. "Memory Keeper, we've identified 12 strategic positions that would provide complete coverage of all approaches to the sleeper domain. Small human crews at these locations could intercept and redirect any species attempting to enter forbidden space." The conversation was interrupted by a new presence as the first dreamer, eldest of all sleepers, manifested on the bridge. The ancient being's form was more complex than any they had encountered, suggesting eons of existence and accumulated power. "Young humans," the first dreamer spoke with a voice like distant thunder, "your proposal intrigues us. No species has ever offered partnership rather than requesting mercy or attempting conquest. But we must understand your true motivations. Why do you offer to serve as guardians of a boundary that limits your own expansion?" Jake exchanged glances with his crew before answering. "Because expansion without responsibility leads to chaos. We violated your boundary through ignorance, and that mistake taught us something important. True strength isn't about how far you can spread or how much power you can accumulate. It's about protecting something larger than yourself." The first dreamer's form pulsed with ancient wisdom. "You would limit your species' growth to serve a greater purpose?" "We would channel our growth in a direction that benefits everyone," Lisa corrected. "Humans need challenges and purposes that test our abilities. Guardianship of the galaxy's most important boundary would give us exactly that kind of meaningful work." Tony brought up star charts showing potential expansion routes that avoided the Forbidden Sector. "There are thousands of other regions where humanity can grow and explore. We don't need your domain to have a future among the stars." Patricia added the final element to their proposal. "First dreamer, we're also offering to help prevent the kind of mistake we made. Human guardian crews would include diplomats and teachers who could share knowledge of the boundary with other young species. No civilization would violate the rule through ignorance again." The first dreamer considered their words for a long time before responding. Your species offers to transform from violators into protectors of the law you broke. This shows a kind of wisdom we have not encountered before. Most species either refuse to acknowledge their mistakes or become paralyzed by guilt over their errors. Jake felt hope building in his chest. Does that mean you'll consider our proposal? It means we will attempt something that has never been tried in 10 million years, the first dreamer replied. We will establish a partnership between transcendent and mortal species, with each contributing their unique strengths to maintain galactic order. Over the next several hours, the details were worked out with surprising speed. The sleepers would return to their deep sleep immediately, while human guardian crews would establish monitoring stations at strategic points around the boundary. Sleeper technology would provide early warning systems and transportation capabilities, while human intuition and adaptability would handle the complex diplomatic situations that arose when other species approached the forbidden region. The 30 million human colonists would not be relocated. Instead, their settlements would be transformed into the infrastructure needed to support the new Guardian mission. Families could remain together, but their purpose would shift from expansion to protection. As the agreement took final shape, Admiral Peter Clark stood in the main conference room aboard the flagship Liberty, surrounded by the strangest diplomatic gathering in human history. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around the circular table, their various forms creating a bizarre but impressive sight. Ambassador Kelly Turner from the Galactic Council looked nervous as she prepared to reveal secrets that had been hidden from humanity for 50 years. Dr. Amanda Wright adjusted her translation equipment one final time before nodding to Admiral Clark. As humanity's best specialist in alien languages, she would be responsible for making sure every word was understood correctly. The fate of 30 million human colonists might depend on perfect communication. Admiral Clark, began Ambassador Turner, what I'm about to tell you has been kept secret from your species since first contact. Every member of the Galactic Council voted to withhold this information, believing that humanity would learn about the forbidden sector gradually, as you matured as a spacefaring civilization. The Zephyrian delegate, a tall being made of crystalline formations, spoke in musical tones that Dr. Wright's equipment translated instantly. We assumed humans understood galactic law before expanding into the outer regions. When your ships first appeared in Council space, they showed such advanced technology that we believed you already knew about the sleepers and had chosen to avoid their domain. Admiral Clark felt anger rising in his chest. You mean every alien race we've met knew about this danger and said nothing? The Corvan Empire's representative, a heavily armored warrior whose scars told stories of countless battles, answered with surprising gentleness. Young Admiral, the knowledge of the sleepers is not shared lightly. Most species discover the boundary naturally as they explore and learn to recognize the warning signs. Your people expanded so quickly in so many directions that you encountered the forbidden region before anyone realized you lacked the fundamental knowledge. Dr. Wright looked up from her notes with confusion. What warning signs? Our exploration teams never reported anything unusual before establishing the first colonies. A new voice entered the conversation, speaking directly into everyone's mind without using sound. The being calling itself the Memory Keeper had arrived an hour ago, claiming to represent the sleepers themselves. Its form was constantly shifting between different geometric patterns, making it difficult to look at directly. The warnings were there, but humans do not perceive reality the same way as other species, the Memory Keeper explained. The boundaries of our domain are marked by alterations in space-time that most civilizations detect instinctively. Your species processes information differently. Where others sense danger and wrongness, humans see only interesting anomalies worth investigating. General Frank Morgan, Earth's top military strategist, leaned forward in his chair. So our curiosity and scientific approach made us blind to something that other species see naturally? In simple terms, yes, the Memory Keeper confirmed. Humans are unique in the galaxy. Most species develop caution and respect for the unknown as they advance. Your people develop courage and determination to understand everything they encounter. This trait makes you valuable allies but also dangerous explorers. Ambassador Turner activated a holographic display showing the galactic map with the forbidden sector clearly marked in red. The region you call the Outer Rim was sealed off 10 million years ago, when the architects transcended physical existence. They became the sleepers, beings of pure consciousness and energy who possessed power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Michelle Grant, the expedition's xenohistorian, studied the ancient records being shared for the first time. According to these files, the sleepers didn't become gods through conquest or evolution. They chose transcendence to prevent themselves from accidentally destroying younger civilizations through their overwhelming presence. The Memory Keeper's form brightened with what might have been approval. Your historian understands correctly. When we achieved complete mastery over matter, energy, time, and space, we realized that our very existence was stunting the growth of younger species. Civilizations would become dependent on us instead of developing their own potential. We chose to sleep until the universe grew old and empty, allowing natural evolution to continue without our interference. Admiral Clark tried to process the implications. You're telling me that the most powerful beings in the galaxy deliberately removed themselves from reality to give other species a chance to grow? We did more than remove ourselves, the Memory Keeper replied. We established the Forbidden Sector as a buffer zone. As long as younger races respected the boundary, we could remain in deep sleep. The region serves as both our resting place and a test. Species mature enough to detect and respect the warning signs are ready to learn about our existence. Those who cannot detect the warnings are not yet ready for such knowledge. General Morgan looked troubled. What happened to species that failed the test before humanity? The room fell silent as every alien delegate looked uncomfortable. The crystalline collective's representative, a being of living light, finally answered. Some withdrew voluntarily when they encountered the sleepers and learned the truth. Others refused to leave and faced correction. What does correction mean exactly? Dr. Wright asked, though her expression suggested she didn't want to know the answer. The Memory Keeper's form shifted to a darker pattern. When a species refuses to respect the boundary, the sleepers must choose between returning to active existence or allowing their domain to be violated. They choose to wake partially, just enough to relocate the intruding species to suitable worlds outside the forbidden region. The process involves altering local time streams to undo the colonization, moving the displaced population to compatible environments, and adjusting their memories so they do not remember the forbidden worlds. Dr. Grant looked shocked. You erase entire civilizations from specific regions of space? We relocate them, the Memory Keeper corrected. No one dies in the correction process. The species continues to exist and develop, but in appropriate locations. From their perspective, they simply chose to colonize different worlds. The violation never occurred because it is removed from the timeline itself. Admiral Clark felt sick as he realized the scope of the sleeper's power. How many species have been corrected? 47 in the past 10 million years, the Memory Keeper answered without emotion. Most were relocated early in their expansion, when the population displacement was minimal. Humanity presents the largest correction event we have faced. 30 million individuals across 50 worlds represents a significant challenge even for us. The Corvan warrior spoke again, his voice filled with respect. Admiral Clark, you must understand that the sleepers do not enjoy using their power. Every time they must wake to correct a violation, it causes them great sorrow. They chose sleep to avoid exactly this kind of intervention. Ambassador Turner brought up another holographic display showing historical records. The correction process has always been the only option offered to violating species. The sleepers have never negotiated or accepted partial withdrawal. The rule exists to protect the galaxy's natural development, and they enforce it completely or not at all. Dr. Wright looked up from her translation equipment with surprise. The Memory Keeper seems agitated by that statement. There's something else, isn't there? The geometric form shifted through several complex patterns before responding. Humanity presents unique circumstances. Most species that violate the boundary do so with small exploration parties or limited colonization efforts. Your people have established full civilizations in our domain, complete with families, cultures, and histories spanning 2 generations. The correction process would affect more individuals than any previous violation. General Morgan sensed an opportunity. Are you saying the sleepers are having second thoughts about correcting us? We are saying that the standard correction process may not be appropriate for humanity's situation, the Memory Keeper replied carefully. The first dreamer, eldest among the sleepers, has called for unprecedented deliberations. Some of our kind believe that humanity's unique development pattern and large population in the forbidden region requires a different approach. Admiral Clark felt a spark of hope. What kind of different approach? That remains to be determined, the memory keeper said. The sleepers are debating options that have never been considered in 10 million years of enforcing the boundary. Your species may be offered choices that no other civilization has received. The room filled with tense anticipation as everyone realized that humanity might not face the same fate as the previous 47 species. The memory keeper's form began to fade as it prepared to return to the sleeper domain. Admiral Clark, your people have 7 days to prove that humanity deserves special consideration. The first dreamer is curious about your species, but must be convinced that breaking precedent will not undermine the fundamental purpose of the boundary. Use your time wisely. As the memory keeper disappeared, Admiral Clark looked around the table at his alien allies and human advisors. For the first time since discovering the truth about the Forbidden Sector, he felt that humanity might have a chance to avoid correction.